I'm Caitlin Baker. I'm from Canberra Youth Theatre, and we're here with Sue. You run artistic director of Polyglot Theatre.
Yes, I have 3 hats. So artistic director, co-CEO of Polyglot Theatre in Melbourne, and I'm also a board member of Theatre Network Australia.
Yeah.
And I'm also president of ASSITEJ International, which is the global association for theatre and performance for children and young people.
Which is very, very cool.
It's pretty cool.
I guess one thing I'm really interested in seeing, because a lot of this summit has been like looking forward, what do we do next when we know we're in a state where something needs to happen? And you've been at Polyglot since 2000, right? And I'm really interested, as somebody who's been there for over 2 decades now, looking forward, what does long-term change in the arts for something like you've helped build from the ground up look like?
That's a very interesting question. Like, change is a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because it can happen in little increments and it can happen in big increments. We can have revolutions, or we can just have the kind of shift that you barely notice. I think with my Polyglot hat on, having been there from the beginning, it was a very small company that was very art form specific. It was a puppet theatre company in the beginning. And when I came on board, it had just got its first ever triennial funding from Australia Council. And then having that, like, the first change that happens is you change leadership. And so that when change of leadership happens, of course, vision changes as well. And so I brought in a whole bunch of stuff that I was using as an independent artist at that point, including community practice, including public art and performance, including participation. And that shifted the company. The biggest kind of turning point for us was about actually losing our Australia Council funding in 2008, and then having to really look at the companies. In fact, we lost it. We were given notice earlier, and in fact, we had to do a whole, like a peer review, like that sort of thing about seeing a company shift and change, not only because of your change of vision, but because of the times we're in, is really, really important to be able to be flexible, responsive, resilient, and still maintain what it is the hell you're doing. So you're not kind of being blown around with the wind, but you're actually going, no, there's a strategy and a reason for this. I don't have to bend over in this circumstance, because that's not what I do. I'm going to make what I do work really, really well. So that becomes the new normal, or that becomes accepted, or that becomes not weird and unusual. It actually becomes something people want. So that's, I don't think I answered your question.
Still a very interesting answer.
In terms of where we are now, like it's really about kind of how do we change and face
what is
shifts.
Successful change for somebody who's gone through that funding cut? Because obviously so many youth organisations right now are fighting for funding. And like Canberra Youth Theatre, we're about to do our 10-year plan again, and we don't know how much the ACT is going to have to give us, even if they want to give us money. So I'm really interested in when the purse strings get tightened, how do you stay true to why we create youth for, by, and with young people?
Well, again, I think it's kind of like from that last, this morning, actually, that idea of being able to tell your story really strongly and telling it in so many different ways and in so many different languages to so many different listeners. The idea of knowing who your receptors are, but also that thing of going, well, nobody said I was going to be monarch of the world or anything. Like, I have to actually do my own work in this circumstance. The idea that the central idea that what we do is so important is just resonating through this entire gathering over and over, and has been for decades, as Robin pointed out earlier. It's just been the same arguments keep on being presented. So how do we actually shift to change the value of children and young people in this country? And this is the question that's being asked all over the world with my global hat on. That is the central question of how we get adults to look at young people as contributors and important parts of society, 4.5% of our population. How do we get that shift in perspective and for us at Polyglot, it's about our central vision, which is about a world where all children are powerful artistically, socially and culturally. That central vision for us pushes everything we do. So that's the thing where I can go, okay, you don't value children as participants. Make a work where children are engaging in participatory theatre and performance and art, where they are co-creating as they play in their instinctive way. And an adult can look at it and go, that's pretty amazing, actually. And you go, yes, I feel like this boy.
Because that's what politicians do, and that's what our legislators do. They build the world around us. There was a really interesting thing that ran at the You Are Here festival in Canberra, where local MPs and politicians emptied out their offices, and young Canberra youth artists ran their office for a day.
That's pretty cool.
So people were coming in and giving their petitions, not to their 35-year-old MP, who may be doing a great job. They're coming in and they're giving it to a 9-year-old girl who she just got her pen license. And she's listening to community. And so it's really interesting to see that notion of like bolstering kids to be powerful in the discourse.
Yeah.
And I think my next thing that I'm really interested in, so knowing that we're trying to shift that value of how we value children and their stories, I'm really interested because you've got a really long career in advocacy. Like advocacy is obviously something that you live and breathe in regards to young people in performance. As someone who's at the beginning of their advocacy career, I'm both a young artist and I'm somebody who wants to go into artistic administration, and I'm interested in creating more opportunities that don't exist in Canberra right now, as so many of us that are under 26 or 29, wherever you draw the line in the sand, are here for. What's the advice? Having had a whole career of advocacy, what's the one thing you could wish and go back and tell yourself at the beginning of your career?
Just that the individual passion and story is incredibly important. One of the big things that I strive for in my advocacy, both globally and in Australia, is to encourage everybody to think of themselves as an advocate.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, when you think you're just kind of going. It's like what that other fellow was saying about listening to that sort of doubting voice in your head, like all your family who goes, what is it you actually do? And you just go, they never get what I do, and then it's so important. And then to be able to go to really trust what you do, and to be able to, because I still do it as an advocate for my own company, as well as for the sector, as well as for the for access for children and young people. I'm changing my language. Like that's still something I hang back from, because I know that value's not there in society. So I'm feeling like I'm having to backpedal or be defensive, and so I have to stop that and go, this is really important for these reasons, and proudly say I work in children's theatre and performance, and I work for children to be powerful in this world, because I reckon it's really super important. Doing workshop, part of my delight in advocacy was trying to do it in so many different ways. So it's not just like letters to politicians, but it's workshops with teachers and parents about creativity. It's running PDs, which is about how to follow a child. It's about, all of those great ways that all those different angles at the same time.
Yeah, and learning that like you're genuinely in the business of both working with wonderful children and young artists,
and
but
you're
also
turning people's opinion around.
And you're making good humans.
And you're making good humans,
And you're looking at humans that already exist. Like I know at Canberra Youth Theatre, we've done significant things. We don't say children anymore. We say young artist. So no matter what age they are, we're like, well, I'm off to see my young artists, which is just a really nice thing that I think echoes that.
Well, it's pretty cool because like all of our artists we work with a child-centered practice. So all of our artists who come and work with us have to let go, basically, of what they know. And also all the adults that we work with, we try and remind them what it was like to be a child. It's one of my biggest, most successful kind of workshop approaches is to get someone to remember when they were 5.
Yeah.
And to remember what choices they made, what they liked, what they did. I have this great exercise where it's just a bunch of figurines, like toys and stuff, and we get someone to choose something that they loved when they were 5.
Oh my God.
And then to choose something that they think their 5-year-old would choose, to choose something, first of all, to choose something they like now, then go back to 5 years old. There's a whole bunch of lovely choice things in there, but they just go, you can see them physically go back. they get emotional, they remember colours and events, and that's like a door open to what it's like.
I think that's a really, oh my god, so that's made me emotional. The child is still there in every adult. The child is still there.
Yeah, don't forget that person.
Thank you so much. That was genuinely really wonderful.
Oh, great.